noise, by its definition, is unintended, undesirable sound. By that definition, anything is noise.
The whole idea that the music that you're making is this revealing of the sound that's going on all around you all the time anyway.
It's like people are all over the world doing it different ways, but they're doing it under this like larger umbrella of a kind of music, a kind of way of improvising with like a vocabulary you've made that's like personal to you, that doesn't exist without you.
Like sure, like if you don't understand like what the instrument's doing or something, or like you don't even listen to that stuff, it's gonna sound horrible and you're gonna hate the person doing it because they're just gonna seem like really pompous or like really self-important to be like, you know, stroking their beard.
Negatively to noise, or say anybody could do it, or you know, I feel like that's kind of part of the point of it, is, you know, anyone can do it.
You know, if you don't like it, there's plenty of other music on the radio.
More cosmic music, and maybe a psychedelic experience connects someone with the cosmos. too many times we forget that we're just on a rock hurtling through space, you know. It's not that I'm trying to make cosmic music, it's just what reality is, actually. Start taking data from nature and patching it into my synthesizer, and I have done that a little bit with photocells. You know, I can stick it out the window and the sun setting will go from a higher voltage to a lower voltage, and it can control the synthesizer. But I want to be able to take like a topographic map of Mars and convert it into a voltage that will control my synthesizer, and then have pieces of music that are entirely based on data. Yeah, I just like the idea of taking the human element out of music. Lots of times when I play at home, especially, I'll set up the synthesizer so that it's playing by itself, like really complex patches using really slow oscillations that aren't synchronized with one another, and so they change over time very slowly, and it kind of creates this this like long form type of piece where you could listen to 10 minutes of it and never realize that no one's touching the instrument. So a lot of times at noise shows I get a really apocalyptic feeling, like this music's made with junk, you know, and it sounds like the apocalypse, but it's joyful. I keep feeling like this civilization is going to crumble at the rate we're going. I don't think it'll be that fun when it happens. I mean, there'll be a lot of death and lawlessness, but somehow just fantasizing about it in art, I just love it.
play, I like to have like kind of a shitty, dirty sound. I feel like some people have gotten too much into the pedal sounds and not enough into like physical sounds or human sounds, you know? Like, I feel like that's the ultimate way to be noise, is to like just be wrong. I've been messing around with like doing abstract music since I was like 15. Except for, I remember like one time when I was where I was home when I was sick in bed when I was like 8 maybe, and I was watching cartoons and I had this boombox, and I discovered that the boombox would record at the high-speed dubbing rate, so I was recording all these cartoons and then slowing them down and playing them back. It like sounded pretty crazy. So I think that was like, you know, I've always been kind of aware of kind of how abstract sounds can affect your brain, I guess. Some of the earliest abstract music I heard, like, when I was pretty young, you know, my dad, like, rented A Clockwork Orange for me and played The Rite of Spring for me, you know. For me, it kind of grew from there, you know, like Wendy Carlos or Stravinsky. To the good part, it's always like a surprise to me. Like, I'm sort of like fumbling with the instrument, I guess, and like trying to like work around this mystery of all this stuff I have on the table, and then I start to get to like a good note or something, and like I enter this area, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I'm kind of like touching some different things, and like, I don't know, it's very intuitive. A lot of my original intent when I started recording is that I wanted people, when they heard it, to like make their own recordings. Because I tried to make my stuff kind of embarrassing and kind of like really human and really like, you know, just to show people that they could do that too.
This is the Sidrasi organ. And an instrument like this is not a bend instrument, and it's not an organ at all, and it's not an electroacoustic instrument. It's just a completely brilliantly designed, real-time music maker that's touch sensitive. This has really helped inspire me to think in terms of pure sound in ways I've never been able to before. It like becomes a part of you, almost like a Stradivarius violin might to a violin player, because it's so sensitive to your touch. And then there's all this patching.
pretty loose definition of music, and it's just, I think of music as intentional sound. To me, there's a lot more discovery in this kind of music. And I mean, I think of it more in general as experimental music. Because even though you might know what's going to happen, you're not really going to know what's happening until it happens. And then you just have to deal with it. It's really just like a circuit. So you just set everything up in a system, and then you just start somewhere and just go with it. And it's less, interest in rhythm and melody. It's more about textures and energetic states. And really just being extremely present with whatever's happening. The only thing I could express with my music is witness the miracle of existence, that we are all here doing these things and this wild stuff is happening in the room. But if I was going to hope to inspire anybody, it would just be more like take life into your own hands, learn how to build something, learn how to do something for yourself. I think my work is almost exclusively fueled by just an interest in what happens when you play things the wrong way, when you do the wrong thing with something. Feedback is completely the wrong thing you're supposed to do with any device, and that's almost just like the heart of my work and a lot of people's work.
Gabe and I kind of function a bit more with deterioration. Everything that I'm running is going through like my tape machine and all this other stuff. There's very little purity. Like the sounds that we're using to make the music that we're playing tonight, it's only the starting point of what's actually coming out of the speakers.
Almost everything is either literally or figuratively feeding back on itself. It's like an ecosystem. It's like a gigantic systemic network that informs itself constantly. And every sound that we put in there, not only do you have that sound, but you have everything that is reacting to that sound. And any one thing can influence the massive whole.
Right, but it doesn't necessarily have to. That's the thing.
Well, there's nuanced control,
there's,
but I mean, I don't think it ever stops being a feedback loop on some level.
No, it does. It does. I have to there's total control, routing wise.
Because I would say that even like at a minimum energetically, like there's this constant chain of events that leads to a new creation of sound.
Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be.
No, but there is. Absolutely there is.
Not at all.
Absolutely there is.
Where were the horror stories, limits of man's mythologies? Some had hardy imaginations, but resisting an ugly soul is my life struggle, this reality afraid of freedom. Slaughter my damaged past, give me a moment to collect my discrepancies. Warm the room with torment, this expectation throttles gas. The joy of emotional release, the balance of raw performance and catharsis, dug deep, should be thankful for the limitation. Quantities of misfortune represent martyred self-pity. Without a spiritual attachment, a definition of vague cloud soul success. These signals plot our coordinates in steps confused in reality. He pushed forward past spaces and particles from century to destiny, the cause for attraction. Separate the faces, there's agony on top of solitude's fortune. I want to be rich, I want to talk to God, I want a beast reaction to feel appropriate. Don't learn to fly, take the time to decide to die.
I actually had this dream, and in the dream, I kind of visualized how I could arrange my gear to get this sound that I wanted. And so the next day I just became obsessed with it. I started fooling around with it, and then within a month I was playing my first show, and it's been about 1.5 years now. A lot of what I think about and write about artistically is the idea of being 15 years in the future and looking back at the time that I'm living in right now and kind of observing what was going on and what led to this kind of apocalypse or big world change, because I feel pretty strongly that in the next 15 years the world is going to completely change as we know it. And to express that emotion and that impending doom, it's pop music doesn't work anymore because it's too orderly, and so people need something that's more directly tackling that issue. I love vocals, and I definitely approach what I do vocals are central, and most of the samples that I use are created vocally. And so I love great vocalists. Like I love Morrissey. I love Nick Cave. I love watching American Idol because I just love watching people sing.
I think Portland is an amazing city. It's big enough to have a lot of those things that cities offer, but small enough not to be choking and destructive to its own self. And for some reason, there's just an amazing amount of artistic people here.
As long as I've known about Portland, there has been some great people here that think just the right way to me. It's a weird place. I couldn't tell you why.
I feel like Portland there's full of people who are really actively doing things. And here there's a little more of opportunity to get by working less and playing more.
I don't think there's as much emphasis on hierarchy here. I don't think hierarchy is nearly as important.
Well, because everyone's in a band.
Well, everybody's in a band. If you're not in a band, you're an artist or you're a chef or you're a writer. I mean, you're doing something. And so, I don't know, and also there's not as much media scrutiny here. And that's changing a little bit, but for the most part, there's not as many newspapers or magazines paying attention. So there's no false perception of I don't know, of some place to climb to.
Yeah, the glass ceiling is you've reached it once you start.
Totally.
Whereas opposed to, like, I think in bigger cities, people are kind of like, okay, I'm going to get this indie rock band together, and I'm going to try to get on a label so I can just tour all the time and hopefully, like, make it. In Portland, it's easy just to kind of do whatever. Like, I don't think there's a lot of people that feel like they have to make it.
God, Portland has more bands than any town I've ever known. It's like San Francisco in the 60s, you know? It's like, what is this? And there's a lot of bands.
When I tour, everyone I talk to is like, I want to move to Portland. It sounds awesome. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, yeah, you know you won't be able to find a job, right? It's getting harder to find a place to live, right? Yeah.
You know, Oregon's pretty, like, geographically removed, which is cool because we kind of get the opportunity to explore and, you know, grow on our own terms.
In the greater Portland sound, there isn't just like one sound. There's not like the Portland sound is this. It's always been this diverse thing.
Portland's probably about as good as any place. You know, a lot of that is just the reputation of Portland, which is why we came here. The fantasy part of Portland is always bigger than the reality part. And if enough people believe a fantasy, it's almost reality. And that's kind of what's happened.
I think it just runs through the tolerance maybe of our state. You know, we're hopefully our upstarts out here out west, but we're also about giving people their little bit of anarchy, you know. While on tour, I had some young kids come up to me and say, "You give me hope." And at first I was like, I was a little like, well, what do they mean? And then I realized they would just say like, that I can still be this creative thing I am now, person or whatever, when I get older, that I don't have to fear, like as I get older, it's going to be over. Because a lot of the evidence that we see in the world just seems to point to that. But that in some ways we were representing this like beacon of hope, like, look at this old gray guy, we're still out here doing, you know, getting crazy, doing weird stuff, and that felt good. Years ago, a batch of us, the Smegma clan, we were, we're done with this LA thing. The air is unbreathable, and some of us had seen trees and fallen in love with that kind of stuff, including myself. And we just decided we were going north. There's no other way to go if you're in Southern California. You go south? No. You're not going to go into the ocean. And if you like deserts, maybe you're going to go east, but essentially we went north.
Portland was half empty. It was like the cheapest city that you could move to at that time. Got a 5-bedroom house for $100 a month. No, 5 guys from California with no job. Not a problem, Get a house. So Portland nurtured us that way because we really were trying to disconnect from society, and in that sense we were somewhat typical of the times.
When I moved to Portland, I moved into the Smegma house in 1979, and I realized that they still had a collective lifestyle going with music in it, and it was the punk rock scene. It was 79, and the punk rock scene was still happening.
When punk rock did hit as a band, we all were like, these guys are just like our political aesthetic or whatever. They come from the same place. We totally related and later got assimilated into the punk rock thing. And I think it draws from the same area where you're just fed up with all this other crap that's out there.
When punk rock came along, the total opening thing about that was they'd let us play. They were interested in having us play at their gigs.
Here, when Smegma actually was very helped in the punk scene by, of all people, Greg Sage of the Wipers, when he decided that because Smegma had a traditional free jam at the end of every show, and the audience was invited to participate, and all it took was Greg coming up and jamming with the rest of the band, and boy, then he just started telling everybody, Smegma is a great band, I love jamming with them, and I want to play with them so I can jam with them at the end.
Even though really nobody else played music anything like us, we found it easy to reach out to them and be considered to be contemporaries, or we definitely felt part of that scene. To someone like me, I do sense that there's been a void in music, even popular music, that's so deep for so long that it's causing what in the past would never have been considered music to actually maybe rise to the level of being considered really music, like noise. Noise not done by professors at colleges that you would have to pretend you'd think it's music because it's done with some legitimacy, but noise just done the same way punk rock would be done or folk music would be done. That's a scary thing to most people because what else is there? How much worse could music get than that?
They either get it or they don't. In some strange way, our namesake was like a pre-filter for that. If you're going to be scared off by the name, yeah, probably don't like the music anyway. So,
Smegma felt that it was like the honest, plain, truth version of music, you know, warts and all, and that's what we needed so bad.
When we first, our single got all over the world, we'd get mail, let's say, like from Paris or France or Poland, and they would say, "Are you guys all classically trained doing this music, or are you guys just from the other side?" And that's when I realized that it's a circle. Both points lead to, I mean, I don't mean to sound arrogant or pretentious about this kind of music, but apparently both ends lead to the same conclusion, you know. Once you learn all this stuff, it can become a part of your palate, but you've got to learn to discard it and start listening again.
Partially now because of just the information overload, and how does anybody tell if anything's real or if anything's actually being presented to them seriously or not? Everything could be a lie or bullshit or nobody cares, you know. So that's what we're still trying to be an antidote for as much as we can be, and I think the world needs it more than ever.
Almost like a full glass of it. Glass of like tequila in the middle of this.
What was the thing I got? What was it called?
It's called a slut hut.
A slut hut.
That's pretty cool. So Josh.
Hey Josh, want to get a shot before you're...
Yeah, yes. I want to get a slut, two of them, two slut huts.
It's really good, man.
Wow, this sounds great, the distortion.
True.
So good. Yeah, I guess I'm just going to fuck around for a while. This goes on in the documentary too. You
some reason, noise music has a lot of music that isn't fully developed because it's a fad, because it's an emerging genre, because it's becoming more recognized. People need to take whatever it is, their drawings, their magazine editorials, their documentaries, and their noise music. Not only should be a fully developed, realized idea, but it should be fucking awesome before you show it to other people. Why would you even want to play noise music unless you didn't have some fucking social or emotional problem?
Based on experience, something you're actively engaged in, but you're absorbed in. It's all around you. It's like your total experience. It's like low-end sine waves. Are you feeling your body? And that's so you're feeling the room. It's not like the music has a logic. It's telling you. It's just creating a space you're in. It somehow goes inside of you, and you make sense of it, and that's really empowering. We're not really a band. A group of people playing music together is one thing, but a band is like a business. Pop music, like in America or in our lives, it's not a ritual. It's just a thing, a commodity, and you choose which one best suits, you know, your identity. Whereas a lot of this music we're talking about, that's not what, it can't be commodified. I mean, you can sell it and make it look cool and package it, but when it really comes down to it, like the human to music connection is like totally personal and uncommodifiable, and that's what's powerful about it. And I don't think it's going to change the world or anything, but it changed my world.
Some people will say, "Oh, your music is spooky or unsettling," and some people will see the humor in it, which is good. That we're not trying to be this stuffed shirt here, you know, like we're very proper and, you know, don't talk to me, because that's not what we're about.
When you're doing this kind of thing, you got to kind of realize the humor in it. You know, you're just kind of a dude going.
But when you really look at it and take a good gaze at it, it's just so incredibly funny that, I mean, it's not a humor that you could ever explain to anyone, you know. It's kind of the humor of the insane. It's working at this thing that you couldn't, it would be impossible to describe to anyone, like, what is good about this. And then someone does it in a way that is like so good and so perverse, and you're just like, oh, you know, like.
Yeah, I think it's funny. You know, I think I'm a humorous to watch person. Yeah, you could laugh at me.
You know, sometimes it's just a bit too much to see everybody like completely, totally serious about what you're doing. And that's kind of not the way we really are. We're kind of goofy, so.
We want things to sound funny, but it's a deadly serious business of presenting it.
When you start to really appreciate noise, it's kind of like this switch over, and it makes you view how you hear everything so differently. Called a spring tar, which is really quite charming. It was built by Daryl, who does pulse emitter, and he was selling it on the internet, and I saw it and I thought, whoa, that thing looks so cool. I know that there are other women I know personally who don't want to play noise because they don't want to be the girl who plays noise music. They don't want it. But I think that's a really bad way of looking at it. I think it should be like, I'm a woman and this is what I'm interested in and this is what I am driven to create, and so you should just want to do it and not be held back.
I've always had a really deep emotional connection to music, and more than visual art or any other form of art. And I always felt that you could explain or describe or invoke certain emotional states only possible through noise. I try as much as I can to really get as deeply involved with the sound as I can, and you know, put myself in as much of a trance or a state where I feel that connection. And also, you know, there can be a highly cathartic aspect. I think that in most cases, noise is a lot more punk than punk music is.
I put on this show with Bennett called Argumentix at the Satyricon, and I wrote this pretty like ridiculous press release, like manifesto basically, about like noise basically being like what punk rock was when it first started, or like hardcore started, or any of these movements that have ended up like becoming something really different. And I think because I used the word punk rock, like saying noise is the new punk rock, and I'm definitely not the first person to say that, but putting that down, like, I think people automatically get something really specific in their minds, and to them that's not punk because they don't understand noise or punk really.
Oh man, yeah, I think this stuff is the most punk rock music ever. Like, it's like the most radical music.
Well, with punk rock, it just originated as being against everything else, and I think that noise is very much the current version of that. So in that sense, I do think it is the new punk rock, because punk now is just this commercialized pop music that everyone understands and can relate to, and noise is not that way at all.
But yeah, politically, it's kind of like what punk was when I listened to punk.
It's like sort of the new DIY culture and the new like, fuck it, just like go nuts, you know, like don't have to play your instruments like super well. Or in this case now, it's like just play whatever you can fucking get your hands on and like build something weird and smash it and make it sound crazy and go nuts, you know, like just like party, just like go fucking, you know, wear weird shit or whatever you want to, just do whatever you want to do, basically. It looks and it sounds like the same, you know, like it looks fucked up, sounds fucked up. It's like really just like, oh man, my head hurts. I kind of have a goal in mind of like a weird, loose composition of like how the music's gonna go. You know, like I'm gonna start out toned and then get like really sloppy and then go back to the tones or something, you know, like some arc of some sort. But definitely I get into like some weird like my own, just like trying to find the two tones within the microphone feedback and just sit on it and just let it pan back and forth and then like slowly tweak it myself, you know. I like that stuff. I think it's like, and then my reaction physically is kind of the same, you know. It's like two spots on the floor that I'm kind of standing in and I'm wobbling back and forth between like balancing over my left leg and balancing over my right leg and then just doing that. Music being loud is awesome, but also I think it should be appropriate. I think everyone just like maybe like sides on like, fuck it man, just fucking turn it all the way up, which I think is funny and like cool, like sure, just fucking crank it, who cares, you know, like doesn't matter, just blow the speakers, which people end up blowing other people's shit and people get pissed, which is fine, whatever. But I don't think everyone should be deafeningly loud.
I like loud music as much as the next person, but if you're know how to fill a room, you know what I mean?
I definitely think that some sounds that come from different PAs that you might perceive as damaging can be pleasurable, for sure. I like wasabi. I like foods that make me cry.
I fucking love loud sound and amplitude. And for a performance, volume definitely really helps achieve my goals.
That's one thing I really enjoy, is not forgetting my earplugs and seeing whether I actually do need them, and seeing whether all it is just some loud noise, or if it is like something that is reaching a certain pitch that you can hear intricate little harmonics within it.
I mean, there was probably a point at which, in the 80s or something, when parents were like, God, how could this music get any worse? Like the rock or whatever. Like this. How are we going to make something that's even more like destructive and abrasive? And you get heavy metal and death metal and like so much more extreme. And then then basically you've taken it down to just none of the the musical elements of that at all. Just the straight. What is that? And I think that it's like it's like Blade Runner music. It's like what you could expect. Maybe a little less of it, and you're still hearing me. Okay. I think a lot of people are interested in the ideas of, it being conflict of technology or perversion of technology or something like that. I think it's more like becoming a shaman of technology. Your connection with technology is at this extreme intuitive level. I can kind of create a pattern, that I'll hear a sound like whoop, 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 and then I can apply that sound to a sample of, say, Mexican radio and make that 8-bit section of radio go whoop, 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 or something like that. The reason that I'm attracted to the instrument is because it's a really good combination of aleatoric and also skill-based means of sound generation. Well, what it is two 8-bit samplers that can be modified by control voltage, meaning that the information within the sample can be manipulated or tweaked in various ways by the modulation voltages that I get going in the center section, which are 8 oscillators that are basically all talking to each other. So all over the wires, coins, and things like that are intended to encourage all of these oscillators to talk to each other in different patterns. There is a nihilistic stream in the people that make this music. That's for sure. That's something that's just always been there. But I think that for me, it's like there's no waking everyone up and causing the revolution and like saving the world. Like it's fucked. Like and like I am fully comfortable with the how fucked it is, and we might as well just party. I don't think of it really as noise, as more of like a kind of surrealist opera or something like that. After a while, it got to the point where no one was making the music that I really wanted to hear. Like I had like gotten so specific with it that I needed to make that music. There was no other way that I could, hear what I wanted to without making it myself.